Okay, we're back, and now we're doing the Alla Prima painting in oil. I'll do a quick demo on how that works. I have our reference photo. Sorry, there's a little glare. And then a couple of ones that I started as a demo. I'll just try to step back. Okay, so the difference from the Grisaille to the Alla Prima is Alla Prima means in one go, or at the first try, at the first go. That doesn't mean once you start you have to paint until you're finished. It just means you're not layering your colors. You're going to have one layer of color. So once you put color down, you should ideally never ever touch that color, that area again. That's how you get very clean colors. Because if I mix a color here, even if straight out of the tube, those are the brightest, cleanest colors. The more colors you mix together, the muddier they get, the dirtier they get, the browner and grayer they get. So the brightest, most energetic color is the one straight out of the tube. So if I paint and I put color down, and then 10 minutes later I go with another color over the same area, that is basically mixing colors and it will get muddy. So the best thing is to not overpaint something. And that's where my thing always comes from, no blendy blendy. Also, what I noticed, you don't want to paint like you're painting a wall. Basically left to right, brushing over and over again. So we're actually not painting. We're laying some colors down. So let me demonstrate. So these are two paintings that I already started, and there's still a couple of things left, so I'm going to do that, finish them. Let me see here how this works. For right now, I'm going to use this here. Let me see if this is better. Okay. On this particular one, I did the underwash in red. It's a very stark red. And like I said before, sometimes that influences your color choices. And also, it's always very nice when a little bit of that sticks out at the end. I'll hand that around and you can see how some of that red comes through, where I didn't cover the entire canvas with my other oil paints. And it makes a very cohesive look. And it gives it a little shimmer to it in most cases. So I have this pear right here, and I kind of painted it already. This is probably from almost 2 years ago, so it's very dry. So I have a nice dark green here, a medium green here, and then a lighter green here. I think you can see the spot where I've kind of brushed over very loosely, so you can see that red underwash coming through, which gives it a nice thing, but it's just kind of out of place in this area. So Alla Prima means we're dealing with the dark colors at the same time as the light colors. We're not just doing dark and light first and then color. We're doing everything at one time. So that's a little bit harder. But most of you know acrylic painting, so it's very similar to that, except the paints are a little different. So I'm going to now mix, and again, very, very important, we're not painting, sorry, this looks terrible. We're not painting with turpentine. The turpentine is only there for washing your brushes. If your paint is a little too stiff, then dip it in the medium, like the Galkid Light or the liquid or anything else you have, safflower oil, any kind of oil. All right, no painting with turpentine and no brushy. So I'm gonna do this pear here. So it was like a blue and a yellow, of course, to make that green. And that's the other thing too. I painted this over a year ago, and I painted it with the same colors with my limited palette. So there are only so many guesses I can make in what colors are used to get this one. So there's only a couple of choices. Let's see. So I'm going to do that lit part here. Oops. This part here of the pear. So there's quite a bit of white in it. So I'm going to do some yellow and blue. Let's see. This might not work out too great. Let's see. So I mix my color, I rationalized what I'm using. I said to myself, and this is very important, because you can't just willy-nilly mix colors and hope for the best. So the best way for a beginner especially is you tell yourself in words, you pronounce it, you can even say it out loud, what color would look best here or what do I use? Okay, it's a light green, limey kind of green. Okay, so theoretically I should use a blue and a yellow. What kind of blue and yellow should I use? And I'm going to mix some. So I'm going to put this on my palette and I'm happy with that. This is definitely a limey light green. So on the palette it will look totally different than when I put it on my canvas, because on the palette it's working against the white. On the canvas it's working against all the other colors I already have on there. So it will look totally different. So I can't just say, oh, this is the color I wanted, I'm just going to start painting that part now. No. Anytime you mix a color, you try it out. You put a little smidge on there, and then you step back. And in this case, looks terrible. And this actually goes into color temp right, that doesn't look good. Because this pair I painted with very warm greens, and this is a very cool green, and it's just the temperature is totally, and this is very advanced. But just from your gut feeling, I think most people will say that does not look good. There's something wrong with it. So now I know it's too cool of a color, or the color's wrong. Let me try something else. So I'm going to just use the other blue and yellow and try a mixture of that. And again, when I make a mistake, I can just use my palette knife and I scrape it. Or you can use a paper towel. All right, that worked because I did it on a dry painting. So now I have a different color. Let's see how that will look. That's a little bit better. I think it's too green, so I'm going to do a little bit more yellow in it. There we go. That looks good. All right, so now I'm going to do the light part on here. Now, and I hope you can see that from over there and you on the video. So I found my perfect color. I'm not going to just now, and sorry, I hope you can see. I'm just not going to brush this on. When I say you put a color down and you don't ever touch it, you just put it on and then you leave that part. So you paint in little dabs, ideally. There you go, and that's it. That looks pretty good. Okay. Oh, and I still have to do the stem. But that's basically it, and that will be a nice lightish part. Now when you go up close, you can see that it's little dabs.
Yeah.
In this area. From far away, it will all merge together and be a nice gradient from dark green to light green. But so it looks good from far away, and then when you come up close to your painting, then you see all these interesting brush strokes. So that's what makes a painting more interesting. So that's kind of what you want. That's what people mostly call loose. I want to paint loose. You want to see some brush strokes. It's not all blendy and all, the same, not a very smooth gradient. You want to have some interest on there. Something else I want to say. Let's see. Let me finish the stem. Let me go over here again. So the stem is some kind of dark brown. When you say brown, brown is always, very boring, and it's actually a very muddy color. So let's turn that into something more like a darkish violet. So I'll use my alizarin crimson and my ultramarine blue to make it dark, but it's a colorful dark. Okay, and I'll put a stem there. There you go, and it's just one brush stroke. It's more interesting to have a confidently placed brush stroke in a little of the wrong place than something that's in the correct place, but you labor over it and it's all brushed out and it's a muddy color. So that looks fine. And then I'll put a little bit of that shadow color in that dimple here. So that would be this dark green again. So I just take this dark violet and I'll go in my highlight green that I just used and maybe make it a little darker. And I observe real well where this is dark, and I'll place it with a couple of strokes. And it kind of gives the illusion that there's a dimple in there. So I don't know where to stay. All right, but that, to me, that pair is pretty much done. So as you can see, I'm making all the decisions at once. Let me do a couple of these grapes up here. And as you can see, I made them very, very purplish. Let me wash my brush. So now you can see an object from beginning to end. So there's 5 grapes up here that I haven't started. And again, I hope I hit that same color. I'm pretty sure I used alizarin crimson. Again, there's only 2 reds that I can guess at. So I'm going to use alizarin crimson, a little bit of a blue, not much. So 3 values you need to make an object round. You need a dark part, a medium part, which is usually the local color. Local color meaning it's the grass is green. Every child, when you say to anybody, what's the color of grass? It's green. What's the color of an apple? Red. What's the color of an orange? It's orange. That's the local color. So you have that medium color, the local color, then you have a shadow part, a darker one, and then a highlighted part. So you only need 3 different colors to describe an object. So for these grapes, I have a very thin shadow color. Oof, that's very thin. All right. There we go. And the light is coming from the top right. Now, so you see here? I did the shadows. Light's coming from here. So on the bottom left at around 7 o'clock on each object, that's where the darkest part is, right? Okay, easy. So I did the shadows. Now I'm going to do the local color of the grapes, and I decided to make these very purplish. So maybe I'll put a little bit more blue in there in my mixture, and I can just use my shadow color. Maybe a little bit of white. Let's see. So I'm trying actually to match now this color that I did a year ago. So I think I'm pretty good. Again, I'm going to just place a little dab on there. I'm not just going to paint all 5 grapes right away because I think it's the right color. I'll put it on. And then I step back. And that looks pretty close. It's a little lighter, but it's not bad. So now I'm happy with the color. So now I'm going to do that middle band of each grape. Okay. Okay, and that's it. And now I'm going to mix a little bit more white in it to get the light part. And I'll do the top quadrant at around 2 o'clock. That's a little too much. Now, if you do that and you go over like 1, 2, 3, you're going to get it very nicely blended. Most beginners like that. It's smooth. It's a nice gradient. When you want to paint loose, which is what everybody wants to do eventually, you want to put a brush stroke on and leave it there. So you would have a harsh edge from your highlight part to your local color, But again, from far away, it looks blended. But from closer up, you can see those interesting brush strokes. It's not all just, oh, okay, it's all blended. It's that perfect gradient. That's really boring to the viewer. So if you just confidently lay a brush stroke in there and leave it, that's way more interesting. So try to strive for that. But again, there's so much to learn in the beginning. Okay, so these are my grapes. See how nice and dimensional they are? Mm-hmm. So now, just to finish that off, so you have your three values, shadow, middle, and then highlight. Well, light part, and now we're the highlight, which is that little itty bitty light, you know, that almost looks white, where the light actually hits. You can see that on this finished painting too, and down here. Usually the best way, if you want to practice, you can use the palette knife, and you don't ever use white for that. That is too harsh and it's too cold. White is the coldest color. So you take your purple that you used for your object and you put some white in there. So it's just a colorful white. And you mix that and you deftly and confidently put one highlight in there. Again, if you labor over it because you think, oh, I wanted it 3 hairs more to the right, don't do that. As long as it's nice and sharp edged on there, it's more important that it's nicely placed than being in the correct location. See, just like a little, I can do that on the side. Also, you don't want to overdo it with the highlights. So, see on here, this one is a little bit to the side, so I didn't put one on. So just vary that a little bit, and there you go. And you have some very nice 3-dimensional grapes that have a highlight on it, and it's done in one go. So I will never ever touch this area again. Also, you notice that, you know, my background isn't finished. It's still that the initial wash of the pink. I did try a little bit here, and I put a little bit white around here and made it a little greenish. That looks pretty good. Why did I choose that color? Well, I have that kind of green already in my painting, even here in the shadow for the table, but also because I happen to have a red background. So red and green are complementary on the color wheel. They're opposite of each other, so they kind of vibrate when they're close to each other. So that would be a good choice. So see, some of the red shows through here. So I can finish that off. Or actually, let me finish off the handle so you can see that. Let's see here. So I left my picture white. You can see that I painted a white picture, right? But you're gonna say, oh, but it's blue over here or purplish. Well, that's because that's the shadow color of a white picture. So to me, that represents a white picture, not a blue one or a purple one. All right, so I'm gonna finish off the handle right here, and it has hold on. It has shadow parts, and it has a highlight. So I get all 3 values again. So I'm gonna start with the middle value. So it's just white and some purple, which I usually use ultramarine blue and the alizarin crimson. All right, that looks pretty good. Oof, too much red. And now I mixed too much in there, so now I have a very dark, so I might as well start with the shadows. Let's see. So it's very dark here. And see again, sorry, it's just so hard to, we were all closer. But I really just put some, let me just, can you see that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Just put a stroke here, and here, and here. And that's it. So again, you don't want to paint. You want to place some colors there and then leave it. So I'm pretty much done with the shadows. So now I'm going to put a little bit more white in there for the mid-tones. And again, I'm just going to put a nice stroke here. And if it's interrupted, that makes it even more interesting. It shouldn't be, I mean, yes, in the photo, it's a nice curve with that perfect gradient of colors. That's kind of boring. I mean, in the grisaille method, that would probably what you would want. But in here, you want it looser, you want to have it energetic. So something too curvy, it just looks limp. So if you kind of go, follow the form in straight strokes, it just looks much better. All right. And then I'm going to use my painting knife and just use white color because it's a white picture, so I can use white for the highlights. And just see there's a little bit here, and that's really it. There you go. And maybe a little bit here. Whoops. That's not working. There. Nice and bold. It's a little too much, but I can always scrape that off. But that is the idea. So that's how you would paint this here. And then at the very end, now I'm pretty much done. I have all my elements on there. I'm very happy with everything, even the table here. So now I would just decide on the background. And again, that was some kind of greenish color. So I would just mix that up. Let's see here. And I want to vary that. I don't want to paint the whole thing in one color. See how I have a little bit more yellow here? And then it just goes into some kind of indefinable green. Let's see here. Ooh! Let's see. That's probably too much. So I can wipe that off. So now that I'm painting my background last, that means you're going to probably mix a little bit in to your other elements, especially like the grapes up here that I just painted. That's still wet color. That is perfectly fine. You're just painting around it. If you pick up a little bit of your grape color into your background color, that is fine. I mean, you don't want to put a big smudge or new color in there, like a halo. But if you pick up a little bit, it actually intermarries those objects. So your object in the foreground is married to your background. If you first paint that perfect background, let it dry, and then place your objects on top in 3 days, it always looks like a cutout. So you want to intermarry them. They have to have a relationship. So let's see here. And as I showed you in those videos, most people will paint the background last. So again, I'm not painting like this. I'm going like that. See? And I'm never going to touch that again. So let's do that here. Not crazy about the green color, but I just want to show you how the technique. Yeah, that's not good. Whoops. That's one of the cheap prices. All right, so let me show this here. Hopefully you can see that. And thank you for watching. We miss you. See you later.